How you doing, everybody? It's Wardy here, and I'm so pumped up to get into today's pre-recorded video just an hour or so before the Mets kickstart their series finale against the Miami Marlins. Hopefully, fingers crossed, they can leg out the victory, but if not, regardless of the reaction, we will have you guys live with our post-game coverage directly after tonight's game, and we're also going to have a new video out dropping earlier tomorrow in the morning that has various Mets topics to get into outside of this one, because, folks, I just went live in the Bleacher Report app literally just over this past hour at 2 p.m. Eastern at the time of recording this one, and I broke down 4 potential trades to happen for teams this season, and I kid you not, I sent my list last night to my producer in BR, having Sandy Alcantara going to the Mets, and what do we come to find out today? Multiple Mets, headlined by Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor, actively advocating and saying how much they would love Sandy on this Mets team as soon as this season. That is yet another example as to why Sandy Alcantara to the Mets makes endless sense. He fits the bill for David Stearns as to what he'd be looking for via trade, and we're going to get into all those details, how a Sandy Alcantara trade may very well happen this season for the New York Mets. Thank you guys kindly for smashing that like and subscribe button as you first chime in, letting me know all your initial reactions in the comments down below, everybody, because as I said, this comes from active Mets players themselves, which is what further warrants our discussion, and we're going to get into why this is in fact a greater reality than maybe what you're initially thinking, given the fact that we're currently recording this video at April 2nd to begin the season. But before we get into this, a quick shout out to our amazing friends at BetUS TV that has you covered with all the latest odds and picks, and as you guys see right now, the Mets are the money line favorite yet again against Miami at minus 210 versus the Marlins at almost plus 183 at plus 182 is the exact number there. Mets run line is minus 1.5, minus 125. Should you guys have interest in doing any of these plays, the way that I know I certainly will do, make sure you check out our awesome friends at BetUS TV that again have you covered with all the latest picks and lines in the game today. But folks, let's get into this one, and let's first get into where this reporting stems from, and it's all thanks to Mike Puma there of the New York Post, in which Mike went out of his way to ask multiple Mets players how they feel about Sandy, and this is what Juan Soto and others had to say. Let's minimize this real quick. Let's do exactly that. Let's go over here. Let's push this to the side, and let's go through these exact quotes together. Starting with Juan Soto, everybody, it would be one of the best trades that we could have. I know we have great pitching here, but adding a Cy Young winner like that would be huge. It's going to take a lot to get him. Francisco Lindor says, and I quote, "It would almost be like adding Soto. You add Soto, it's going to help the team. You add Alcantara, and it's going to help the team." Starling Marte, and I quote, "He has the stuff and the mental makeup to be able to play New York. He's got the mental strength and physical gifts to be able to have success here, and I think we have shown that we help pitchers even more." And he's 1,000% right. And mind you, for those that don't know, Starling Marte is the former teammate of Sandy's going back to his little stint that he had with the Miami Marlins a couple years ago. In the case of Lindor and Soto, they faced him heavily over the past number of years in the National League especially, and they know all about Sandy. And not only is there this familiarity and this slight connection, because when you think of the Los Mets, especially of Dominican players, Puerto Rican players, Venezuelan players, Cuban players, Nicaraguan players, and Dominican players like Mark Vientos, for example, there is certainly a little bit of a niche that goes in hand with the Mets clubhouse on top of the roster itself when we look at these backgrounds. And Sandy falls not only in that category, but he would be a seamless fit for this Mets team for endless reasons, and we're going to get into why exactly that is, folks. But check out the entire article that I will have linked down below for you guys to check out. It's pretty much just these quotes verbatim, but Marte is an important one to acknowledge in this, because not only did we see that, you guys can actually see, and shout out to James here on Mets Cove on X, we appreciate him, great follower here. He put how on Instagram we saw, looking at his own reel that he posted regarding Sandy and the Mike Puma quote, Sandy actually checked it out himself. You guys can see that. That is Sandy's actual Instagram with a check mark right there. Then we see, which is resurfacing here from Menchie on X that posted this earlier, going back to a Reddit forum from a couple years ago, Starling Marte, let's not forget, a couple years ago had under Sandy Alcantara's post on Instagram, "I'm bringing you to the Mets." You guys see that down there? So yes, clearly this is something that not only Starling Marte has been advocating for as his former teammate, but now to hear from Juan Soto and for Francisco Lindor to say that this would be as big as Juan Soto, I understand that the key context in this is that he's saying that this guy's going to make us better. So that's the context of it, but it's still a crazy thing to say in my opinion, and it's all the more reason to believe that Sandy, again, fits this Mets team in more ways than one. So let's get into Sandy Alcantara. Let's break down his game, and let's get into why he is not necessarily the perfect fit, but probably as close to a perfect fit that's a guy like David Stearns and Steve Cohen would be looking to acquire a player from this season, whether it's in the next month or two before guys like Sean Manaea come back from Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas come back from injury, or if it's leading up to the trade deadline, which is likely the greater likelihood here, just because, again, are we really going to expect the Mets to go out of their way to make a massive in-season trade in the first month or two? I would love to see it happen, and for all we know, maybe the rotation forces the Mets' hand a little bit, but until we find out more certainty as to what the next couple weeks to month are going to entail on the pitching front, the Mets aren't going to be too drastic. So this is where, again, especially as we get into this summer leading up to the trade deadline, this is a conversation we're going to further have. And as you guys see the stats down below, Sandy, all the numbers speak for themselves. And the most important thing that you guys need to look at as we evaluate Sandy is not just the stuff that you see down below on the baseline numbers. No, guys, you also need to focus on the contract here. That is the big thing that's going to really reel in David Stearns out of all people, because as we know, David is stubborn. He's not a guy that likes to invest long-term on starting pitchers, especially ones that are either coming off of career years and are in the peak prime of their career. He doesn't love the idea of investing 7-8 years into a guy unless they fit the short and long-term bill and are in their mid-20s like Yoshinobu Yamamoto certainly was, as the Mets failed in their pursuit, not for lack of effort, obviously, 2 off seasons ago. But Sandy, as you guys see down below, he just faced the Mets this past night at the time of recording this. He went 5 solid innings, allowed a couple runs, but overall looked sharp. The fastball is as lively as ever. We know that when he's right, he can touch the upper echelon there, touch a 99 on the gun. The slide piece is disgusting, touching the high 80s, if not low 90s. Again, doing his best Edwin Diaz and Danil Nunez impression. And the best part about Sandy Alcantara, or Alcantara, however you guys would like to pronunciate his last name, I apologize if I've been butchering it up until this point, but I always flip-flop on how I personally say his last name. What I will tell you is that this is a workhorse. This is absolutely what the Mets are looking for. Not only are you getting a guy that's in the peak prime of his career at the young age of 29, he's coming off of a Tommy John season, which actually benefits the Mets a bit in his trade value, just because it's not like he was dominating last year. He was away for over a year. So regardless on what Sandy does or lack thereof leading up to the trade deadline, he is going to be obviously a key pitcher for the Mets to focus on, and it's for the following reasons. Not only do the numbers speak for themselves, as you guys see down below, but this man is a true workhorse. When I think about guys that are going to be able to give you north of 200 innings a season, that's where Sandy, a healthy Sandy, comes into play. And then you add in, oh, okay, you have him under team control this year, you have him under team control next year, and you have him under team control in 2027 with a club option, folks. This is the next at least 2.5 seasons of Sandy under team control. That is to a T what David Stearns would and likely does have interest in doing. Now, I understand Mike Puma kind of set up the Mets and Juan Soto and Lindor and Starling Marte, among others, to go out of their way to make comments on Sandy because he was brought up in discussion. But for them to go out of their way to make as elongated discussion as they did on him, reiterating how much he would be a key piece, and Soto said it would take a lot, but it doesn't change the fact that we would obviously be in favor of it happening. And as I broke down in Bleacher Report, as I know it would take numerous pieces, including probably a guy like Brett Beatty, I think that goes without saying. It's going to include MLB-ready talent as well as guys in the farm, but this is what you do for guys with multiple years of control. And the thought of an ace caliber pitcher like Sandy Alcantara frontlining this rotation with a healthy Kodai Senga, Clay Holmes hopefully as best. We'll see how he does in tonight's start, his second start of the year, first time against Miami as a starter, and everyone else, Sean Manaea, Frankie Montas, when they eventually come back. The Mets quickly look like that they have one of the weaker rotations in the National League to easily one of the strongest, and that is how much of a difference maker someone like Sandy makes in the snap of a finger. And we know that Peter Bendix and the Marlins are by all means down to trade within the division, because they did exactly that by trading away a guy that I previously wanted this offseason before thinking of a guy like Sandy, and that was Jesus Luzardo. Luzardo's young, controllable, makes endless sense as to why a team like the Mets would love him, and the Philadelphia Phillies, who already had a rock-solid rotation, went out of their way and acquired Luzardo in a trade that I really think is going to be fairly lopsided, favoring the Phillies for the next couple of years. He's younger as well, which is why he was so appealing, but listen, Luzardo came and went. He stayed in the NL East, and he's staying with a rival this time in the Phillies. Why wouldn't Peter Bendix trade again in the division? division as long as for what is best for this team and what the Mets have to offer. Because let's face it, the Mets have an abundance of players that they can offer, not only MLB-esque ready talent right now, but as well as guys in the farm that'll be impacting the Marlins this season and in the seasons going forward. Now, to break down a little bit more as to just how good Sandy has been throughout his respective career, everybody, just take a moment to appreciate these numbers along with me, as you guys can see. And actually, I'm going to just move this here through Fangraphs so you guys can see all the numbers. Again, gorgeous numbers that we're seeing in this one. Listen, guys, 184.2 innings in his final season before Tommy John, a 7.3 K per nine, but a 2.3 walks per nine. So the K per nine did go down a bit leading up to his injury, and he posted just over a 4 ERA, but that was while, mind you, everything was hanging on by a thread with that elbow leading up to the Tommy John surgery. And that's because previously he had the past 4 seasons outside of 2020, pretty much pitching 200 innings. Don Mattingly threw him out there for 7 to 8 innings, what felt like every single start when he was the skipper of Miami. My only concern with that was, geez, he might get ran into the ground fast in Sandy before we know it, because he's the only pitcher in baseball that's consistently going deep into games the way that he was for a while. Going back to the 2019 season, right? 23 years of age, 197 innings. We're looking at a 3.88 ERA, a 4.6 expected ERA. We're looking then 2020, 42 innings, a 3 ERA flat, a 4 expected ERA. Okay. Analytics, expected numbers, not favoring him too much. We get into 2021, 205 innings, a roughly 9 K per nine to just over 2 walks per nine, a 3.19 ERA, and a 3.47 expected ERA. That's better. That's telling you that what he can control, things are more on his side than previous years. Advancing to his now 2022 season, age 26, folks, this is where the Cy Young Sandy comes to play. An 8.15 K per nine to a sub 2 walks per nine, a 2.28 ERA, and a 2.9 expected ERA. How many punchies? Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah, in 2021, he had 201, and in 2022, he had 207. 2023, he dialed back to 151 because the K per nine was down a little bit that we saw, but that was leading up into him having his injury-plagued year there in 2024, rehabbing with Tommy John surgery. Sandy fits the mold, and as we take a look here through Baseball Savant, so far this season, everybody, again, for what he can qualify for, he's looking elite. Fastball velocity sitting 97. The sinker is nasty, that we know. That's sitting right around 97. The changeup sitting right around 90. The four seam at 97 plus. That can touch obviously 99 to 100. The curveball at 86 and the slider at 88 to 90. And I thought his slider usage was pretty good against the Mets in this past outing that we saw. And just to take a jump back to his last healthy season, everybody, this is what we were rocking with, right? 87th percentile in pitching run value, 94th in fastball run value, 95th in fastball velo, 97th in chase percentage, 80th in walk percentage, 65th in barrel percentage, 87th in ground ball percentage. K per nine was down, which is why the K rate was down and the whiff rate was down. But if we go back to the last time that Sandy had a truly fully healthy year where his elbow wasn't a ticking time bomb, that takes us to 2022. And in 2022, he was truly that Cy Young caliber pitcher that we saw. 100th percentile in pitching run value, 69th in fastball run value, 80th in breaking run value, 100th in off-speed run value, 85th in expected ERA, 75th in expected batting average, 96th in fastball velocity, 94th in chase percentage, right around middle of the pack in whiff rate and K percentage, well above league average in walk and barrel percentage, just below league average in hard hit percentage, well above league average in ground ball percentage, 90th percentile, and there you go. Sandy has all the makings to be exactly what the Mets like in their arsenal, and the fact that he has the sinker, the slider, the changeup, and the four-seam are all exact pitches that we know that this pitching lab can work with, especially the sinkers and the sliders. We know that the Mets have done a brilliant job in their lab, not only with starters, but relievers, especially utilizing the sweeper, not just any slider, but that sweeper especially. We've also seen utilization with pitches like the death ball as well. That's been really impressive in the Mets bullpen. But to see what Desi Drusco and Jeremy Hefner could do with an already ace caliber pitcher in Sandy, just got to keep him healthy. And this could be a recipe of success for both sides. For the Marlins, they would get a proper prospect return with MLB ready talent, as well as for the Mets, they would be getting a surefire guaranteed thing of an ace caliber pitcher to help frontline their rotation that can eat you big innings, that can go deep into games for you. And when you look at this rotation right now, even when healthy with Frankie Montas and Sean Manaea, there's absolutely a concern in the length that you're getting from guys. Sandy has the ability to still be that anomaly. Maybe he won't be thrown out as consistently as Don Mattingly was doing it a couple years ago by going 7, 8, even 9 innings, full game shutout like it was nothing. nothing pretty much every start, it felt like, for a period of time. But here's the thing. If you can get Sandy to be a guy that can give you 6 to 7 innings at least every start out there, you have something cooking, Mets fans. So, folks, I will just preface by saying I don't know exactly when this trade will happen, but don't be surprised when it does. And I'm not just saying that as someone who always talks about all the latest news and rumors with the team. We talk about endless players every offseason and throughout the year, and the Mets only land a small percentage of those players in reality. But just like last year, as we talked in the early goings of the year, how Jesse Winker made a lot of sense for the Mets. I had him in my top 5 trade target video well before the Mets acquired him, and bam, they acquired him. So it's not like it can't happen for guys that we previously talk about, but Sandy checks off the boxes. He's not a rental pitcher. He's not a guy that would only be here for a year. You have him for pretty much 3 years, depending on how soon you would acquire him this season. And for the Mets, here's the thing. This is where, unless the price point is drastically different from now up until the trade deadline, there is a reality that the Mets could swing this trade before the trade deadline itself. Now, yes, they're going to have a tall task of competing with other teams looking for top pitching. The Yankees will be in that category. The Orioles will be in that category. 2 teams that have plenty prospects to part with. But here's the thing. Sandy knows the Mets. He probably has a slight preference to come to Queens, especially after hearing those comments. Him checking out on Instagram is further telling that he knows he's just a ticking time bomb to get out of Miami and to stay in the division, and it's something that he's very familiar and comfortable with as is. Makes a lot of sense. Now, I know Sandy only has so much pull when Peter Bendix is the one doing the talking and doing the trades, but for David Stearns, this is where he could really pitch again the amount of MLB-esque ready talent the Mets have to offer, and which we know we have an abundance in the infield. Not everyone with Brett Beatty, Luis Angel Acuna, Jet Williams, and Ryan Mauricio are going to be part of the future. That's a reality, folks. The Mets are inevitably going to be trading some of these guys. Who are they going to trade, and what exactly is the magnitude of this deal going to be? That is what we'll find out. But in the interim, folks, it looks like that the Mets may have something cooking here, and when there's smoke, a lot of times there's usually fire, whether that leads to an actual trade or just to further trade talks throughout the season. It feels like it's going to be the latter at minimum, but rest assured, when we find out more info on Sandy, along with other news, other rumors regarding the Mets throughout the entire course of the 162, we'll be here on the platform to break it down for each and every one of you. But guys and gals, thank you so much again for watching. A couple things before we get out of here. If you haven't already, check out our awesome friends at SeatGeek that have you covered with our great promo code WARDY10, linked down below, hyperlinked, where if you click on it, and if you have the SeatGeek app download already, it'll be automatically adding the 10% off your next ticket order, whether that's for the Mets home opener as soon as tomorrow. So excited for that Blue Jays series. I'll be in attendance for the game as soon as we're going to see Sunday, and shout out again for SeatGeek for making that happen. That's a day game that we're going to see there against the Miami Marlins. So homestand against Miami after that Blue Jays series. Can't wait to be there for my first game at City. But if you guys want 10% off for your next ticket order on anything ticketing related, SeatGeek has you covered, and we're trying to have them all year long on the platform. So you guys go now your way to sign up, and not sign up, but just use the link. It really does mean a lot. So thank you guys kindly for that. As well as, do you guys want to hit a game of Wardy this year? We are doing multiple events at Citi Field this year, including an actual full hangout with Wardy at Citi Field throughout the entirety of the game. We're going to have some awesome pregame perks, among other things, and we have already unrolled our pre-sale priority list, which means if you guys email me at officialwardynym@gmail.com, officialwardynym@gmail.com is down below in the description. Send me your full name and the amount of tickets you have interest in. You guys will automatically have the pre-sale list, which means that when the tickets eventually drop, no matter how much they are or lack thereof, and all the perks that you get with it, should you guys still have interest in attending the event that we'll be doing with the date and everything official, you guys will get first dibs and first access. And the route that we're currently going, folks, it looks like we're already going to have to double our initial expectation of the amount of people that have had interest, because our priority list is already almost full. So email us, officialwardynym@gmail.com. That way you get on the pre-sale list for as soon as those drop later on this year. Cannot wait to unroll it for each and every one of you. Can't wait to hit Citi Field with you guys. We're going to have so much fun at Mets games this year. But let's go Mets, baby. I'll see you in our post-game coverage later today. New video dropping early tomorrow. And then we have maybe Mets pregame before that home opener, but certainly postgame. You guys know the drill. At least 2 forms of content every single day here for the most part on WardyNYM, because I love you. Peace out, folks. Let's go Mets, baby.